guys, welcome back to this channel. My name is Charles Bryant. Today we are going to learn basic camera button functions and then how to put the lens on the camera body right from the start. So if you've never done that before, stick around, and actually, you know what? I'm just going to help the transition. All right, so when you get your camera out of the box, right, you're going to see a lens and a camera body, okay? Now, there's going to be a protective cap here on the camera body itself, and then there are going to be two on the lens, one for the back end, one for the front end. Now, when you take these caps off, you need to be really careful where you're doing it and be mindful of that, because you don't want a lot of dust, dirt, and debris falling into this area here of the camera or in this area here of the back of the lens. It could ultimately ruin your camera. Now, generally, there is going to be some dust and dirt over time with use that comes in there, and then later on during this series, I will show you how to clean that. All right, when you're looking at the lens and the camera body, there is going to be a marker on this one. It's going to be right here, okay? And sometimes it's on the inside of the mount. This is a plastic mount, but some may have a metal mount. And then on here, this is a metal mount, and you can see where this marker is right here on this camera. You want to line those two marks together, right? And if you refer back to your manual, it will show you the direction in which you need to turn to lock the lens into the camera. Now, if you should ever need to take your lens off, because you're going to eventually, when you want to switch a lens or do whatever, maybe you want to pack it up a certain way, there is a button on the camera on the side here that you're going to need to press and hold down, and then you're going to turn the lens in the opposite direction, okay? And then you can pull that off. Now, I wouldn't leave the camera wide open like that. I would go ahead and get my lens and camera body caps put back on. That way you can keep everything protected until you're ready to use it again. So, moving along. Are you bored yet? I hope not. Now let's get down to some button functions and some of the basics of the camera. First thing you want to learn, where do you put the battery, and is it charged? Because that is the biggest faux pas that people make. I've even made it, where you get out somewhere, you're shooting, or you think you're going to shoot, and you don't have a battery. It's dead. And then you're just kind of like a fish out of water, right? The next thing you want to do is look for the memory card slot. So make sure you've got your memory card in there and it's ready to go. The next thing we're going to look for is the on and off switch. And believe it or not, it sounds remedial, but if you're new to photography, that is one mistake that is very easy to make. You get out there and you're ready to shoot and it won't work, and you're frustrated and you want to throw your camera down. Well, it's all because it's just not turned on. All right, so now that we've gotten this far, let's go ahead and recap what we've done so far. We've attached the lens to the camera, we've put the battery in the camera, we have made sure there's a memory card in the camera, and now we have turned the camera on. The next thing we're going to look for is the mode dial, and that basically puts the camera in different modes of different styles of shooting. All right, so listen up, turn up your volumes, because I'm about to go over in brief detail the functionality of the different modes on this dial, and most cameras do have these mode button functions, but I don't expect you to understand all the terminology. But however, in the next video, when I go over exposure, I'm going to go over in great detail what these do and how they're applied, and then it'll all make sense to you. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is manual mode, and that is the letter M on the dial, and what that means is the camera is completely manual. There is no automated functionality at all. You are in control of every aspect of the camera as far as the different functions that allow light to enter the camera lens. All right, so moving on to AV, that is not audio visual, that is aperture priority. Now, I know you probably don't know what aperture means, and if you do, thumbs up, because you're a step ahead of the game. But aperture priority, if you break the word down, is you are taking control of the aperture. You're going to set that aperture to the width or however wide you want it to be, and the camera is going to be basically your coworker. He's going to say, hey, you know what? Guess what? You hired me to help you, and I am going to take control of the rest of the different aspects of this camera that allow light to come in and expose the photograph correctly. I'm going to do all that for you, while all you have to do is set the aperture to where you want it and then focus and take the picture. How about that? And you're going to say, gee, thanks, man. Appreciate that. All right, now moving on to the next mode, you're going to see a T and a V. Now, that does not stand for television. That stands for shutter speed priority. Just like with aperture speed priority, shutter speed priority says that you are in control of the shutter speed. You're going to set it to whatever speed that you want, and then your coworker, your camera, is going to take control of everything else. Now, as you move on to the next mode function, you're going to see a green rectangle, some kind of a letter A or a camera or something that's going to signify automatic mode. And automatic mode basically is the most favored mode by most new photographers, because They don't really have to think a lot. The camera does all the work. All you have to do is focus and pull the trigger to take the photograph, or press the shutter to take the photograph. And the camera does all the work. Now, if you watched the intro to this whole series, I'll put a link up somewhere in here, I told you that the camera can get fooled sometimes, and it can. Now, as we move along the mode dial or mode functionality button, every camera is going to be a little different, and some cameras are going to come with presets for sports, for macro photography, for landscape, and that's great for beginners, but as we get on through this series, you're going to learn that you're going to want to have control of all that yourself. All right, so that's pretty much the mode button or mode dial, whatever you want to call it. However, in the next video, when I go over exposure, we're going to go into better detail, and all of these things like shutter speed, aperture, ISO, those things like that are going to make better sense to you, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the viewfinder. Now, that's not really a button function, but it is a very important part of the camera. A lot of you probably have LCD panels on the back which incorporate a live view setting, and you're going to want to use that because you've been using your smartphone to take pictures for so long, and that feels comfortable for you. But I want you to learn to use the viewfinder. And the reason is because the viewfinder encapsulates your whole eye, and it's kind of like wearing sound isolating earphones, right? You only hear what you want to hear, and you don't have any of that outside noise bothering you. Well, same with the viewfinder. When you put that up to your eye, you're going to only want to see what's in that rectangle area. That way you can compose your photograph the way you want, and you can practice on composition. If you try to use the LCD panel right from the start, I just feel like you're going to have distractions and things, and you're not going to really concentrate on exactly what you're looking at. So learn to use the viewfinder, it is important, and then you can get into using the LCD panel. Because if you've got a flip out panel, it's really nice, because I use it a lot when I'm doing photography down on the ground, and let's say I don't really want to lay down in the ground, I can just flip that screen up a certain way, put the camera down the ground, I can get an awesome low-angled shot. That's when it comes in handy. Okay, so last but not least, the most important button that we're going to look at besides the on and off switch is going to be the shutter button. And that's this button right here on my camera. Guys, that's where you take your picture. Now, the shutter button and the focusing mechanism are generally combined into one button. Now, mine, I'll press it halfway down, okay? Halfway down, and then when I'm looking into the viewfinder right here, you're going to see a little flash of light maybe, or you're going to hear an audible beep, or you may hear both. And that's going to alert me to say, hey, the camera says it's ready to go and it's focused. Then you're going to press the button all the way down, and then you'll hear that shutter clap, and you'll know you've just taken a picture, and you're going to feel pretty great about it. So practice, practice, practice. Let's rehash real quick what we've learned today. We've learned how to take the lens on and off the camera body. We've learned where to put the battery. We've learned where to put the memory card. We've learned to turn the camera on and off and where that button is. We've learned what the mode button is. We've learned where the shutter button is and what it does. And we learned about the viewfinder. Just practice with the camera, get familiar with it to where you don't have to think about it when you pick a camera up. Okay guys, stick around and make sure you come back for the next video when I go over exposure, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO or film speed so that you have a better understanding of what those are and what they do, and that will make you an ultimately better photographer. See you later.